Warriors fans, let me tell you, this season feels different already. We're not even deep into the games yet, and you can sense the shift in energy around this team. When you look at Golden State right now, you can't just compare them to the championship squads of the past and expect the same picture. Sure, those earlier teams had an almost unfair level of talent stacked at every position, but what we're seeing this time around is a group locked in on one thing, and one thing only: finding their roles, embracing them fully, and turning that mindset into wins. Everywhere you look on this roster, from the newcomers trying to earn their minutes to the battle-tested veterans, and of course the legendary core of Stephen Curry, Draymond Green, and the new spark with Jimmy Butler, there's a very clear attitude. It's not about flashy numbers or individual accolades. It's about being part of something bigger, and that's the kind of mentality that can carry a team farther than people expect. The young guys especially have been vocal about it. They've said they're here to learn, to grow, and to fit into what this team needs from them. They want to be reliable role players who can contribute on a championship-level squad. And for a group that doesn't yet have all the trophies, that kind of hunger makes a huge difference. When you talk about Steph, Draymond, and Jimmy, you're talking about players who already understand exactly what it takes to go the distance. They know the grind of a playoff run, the sacrifices, the adjustments, and the mental toughness you need when the lights are the brightest. These guys have lived it. They've lifted trophies, they've felt the heartbreak of tough exits, and they've learned that fine line between winning and going home. And because they've been through it all, they've set the tone for the rest of the squad. A big theme that came out of Media Day was all about momentum. Everyone was asked some version of the same question. How do you take what happened at the end of last season and carry it forward? How do you bottle up that energy from the 23-7 run after the trade deadline, that sudden spark that propelled them into the playoffs, and build on top of it instead of letting it fade? And the answers across the board had one common thread. This year, the team feels like it has structure from the very start. Last season, remember, they were scrambling. They dug themselves into a hole early, searching for direction, and only really found their identity after Jimmy came in. Suddenly, it was like a switch flipped. They weren't just playing regular season games anymore. They were battling every night as if it was already the playoffs. That pressure forced them to sharpen up, and it created a kind of urgency that young players don't usually get exposed to so quickly. But this year is different because now they have a full training camp with Jimmy fully integrated. That matters. It means they're not figuring things out on the fly midway through the season. They're building chemistry, developing trust, and shaping an identity from day one. And if you listen closely to Steph and Draymond, they both emphasized how huge that is. They don't want to spend months chasing after chemistry again. They want to hit the ground running. What really stood out to me was how much the players emphasized the way last season felt like survival mode for months straight. From January on, every single night had the intensity of a playoff game. That kind of run builds character, but it also takes a toll, especially when you've got injuries piling up like what happened against Minnesota. Still, Steph said something that stuck with me. During that stretch, Golden State wasn't just another team fighting to make the postseason. They were dangerous. Nobody wanted to face them. They had that edge, that fear factor, and that's the feeling they want to recapture. Another piece of the puzzle that's been getting a lot of attention is the training camp Jimmy hosted. Now, this wasn't your standard drills and workouts. This was about creating bonds off the court, about building the kind of chemistry that used to define the Warriors during their early championship years. Remember those famous team dinners on the road during the first title run? That's the kind of culture they're trying to recreate. Young guys get the chance to sit with veterans, talk basketball, talk life, and see firsthand what it means to be part of a winning culture. That's invaluable. And you can tell from the way they talk about it, those dinners, those workouts, those moments together matter. Because here's the reality. Golden State can't afford a slow start. They've lived through that already, and they know what it costs. Falling behind early means you spend the rest of the year climbing uphill, and that pressure wears on a team. It's in those situations where finger-pointing starts, blame gets tossed around, and the locker room atmosphere can get toxic. That's what they want to avoid at all costs. So, these bonding moments at training camp, these early lessons for the young guys, that's more than just team building. That's preventative maintenance for the season ahead. Steph said it best with his attitude. toward Jonathan Kuminga's situation. He compared it to the way Derek Jeter carried himself in baseball. Always the nice guy winner, the steady presence, someone who never loses sight of the bigger picture, which is winning. He basically told Kuminga, go handle your business, take care of your side of things, but when you're back, we expect total commitment. That's leadership right there. It's not dismissing the business side of the NBA, it's acknowledging it, respecting it, but also keeping the standard crystal clear. If you're part of this team, you give 100%, no questions asked. Jimmy, on the other hand, was a little more laid back about Kuminga. His message was simple: it'll get figured out. That's the voice of someone who's been through the ups and downs in Miami, who knows how these situations usually resolve themselves. He's not losing sleep over it, because he believes the Warriors will be fine whether Kuminga stays or a move is made. And then Draymond, being Draymond, gave the perspective only he can. He broke down how negotiations always feel like a tug of war, with one side trying to get the upper hand. Rarely does it feel like both sides win, and that's just the nature of the business. That honesty from the veterans is exactly what the young players need to hear. They're learning that the NBA is as much about contracts, negotiations, and front office decisions as it is about buckets and assists. It's a dual reality, and the quicker they accept it, the quicker they can lock into what matters most when the ball goes up. And that's the edge this team seems to have going into the season. They know the noise will always be there. They know the rumors will fly. The trade chatter will never stop. But as long as the guys in the locker room are bought in, that's what counts. Now, looking at the bigger picture, it's clear this Warriors squad is basically running it back with the same foundation as last season, just with a few reinforcements sprinkled in. That continuity matters. It means lessons learned last year don't have to be relearned. It means chemistry that took months to build is already established. Add in the new faces who are being welcomed into that culture through things like Jimmy's camp, and suddenly you've got a group that's starting this journey already connected, already moving in the same direction. And if you ask me, that's the difference between being good and being truly dangerous. Golden State isn't just trying to be competitive. They're trying to win it all, and even though they might not have the overwhelming talent edge they once had, they've got the culture, the leadership, and the hunger. That could be enough to shock a lot of people. When you really look deeper into the storyline surrounding this team, you can't ignore the way Jonathan Kuminga's situation has been hovering over everything. It's like this cloud in the background, not completely overshadowing the optimism, but always there. What struck me is how carefully most of the young players addressed it. Moses Moody, for example, kept his answers vague, almost as if he didn't want to be pulled into something that wasn't his battle. And honestly, that makes sense. Moody already has his contract settled. He doesn't have to worry about negotiations right now, and his focus is purely on his role with the team. But with Kuminga, it's different. He's at that stage where the financial side of his career intersects with his development, and that creates tension. The veterans, though, had more to say. Steph, in particular, showed why people compare him to Derek Jeter. He's calm, collected, and always focused on the only thing that matters to him: winning. His message was crystal clear. He respects Kuminga's need to look out for himself, to secure his financial future, but at the same time, there's no wiggle room when it comes to commitment. If Kuminga returns, he's expected to be fully locked in, completely bought into the team's mission. There's no space for half effort or split focus. Steph delivered that message in a way only he can, firm but without ever sounding harsh. And that's why he's such a respected leader. Jimmy's approach was looser. He's seen this type of thing before in Miami, and to him, it's just another part of the league's business cycle. His attitude was almost like, let it breathe, let it play out, things will work themselves out in time. Whether Kuminga stays or whether a move is made, Jimmy seems confident that the team will adapt and keep pushing forward. That kind of mindset is valuable because it prevents the locker room from getting too tight, too anxious about things they can't control. Then there's Draymond. His perspective was the most raw and probably the most revealing. He's lived through tough negotiations himself, multiple times. He admitted there were moments when he thought his time in Golden State was done, when he assumed the front office was ready to move on. He mentioned how, after that incident with Jordan Poole, he genuinely believed he was gone. Yet here he is, still wearing a Warriors jersey, still sitting in front of the cameras for his 14th straight media day. That's experience talking. He knows the tug-of-war of contract talks. He knows the way each side fights to win, and he knows how messy it can get. Hearing him put Kuminga's situation into that perspective makes it clear that nothing is ever final until it's final. Just because negotiations feel tense doesn't mean the relationship is broken. What I really liked was how Draymond tied Kuminga's story back to Steph's early years. Steph's first big deal, 4 years for $44 million, turned out to be one of the biggest bargains in NBA history. Steph completely outplayed that contract, and because of that, the Warriors had the flexibility to build a dynasty around him. That deal is a perfect example of how contract values can shape the trajectory of a franchise. Sometimes the player wins, sometimes the team wins, and occasionally both sides come out on top. That's the balance they're trying to find with Kuminga. And while all of this is going on, the team continues to prepare for the season. Media Day wasn't just about Kuminga. It was also a chance to see the reinforcements, the new faces who'll be stepping into training camp and blending into the mix. Names like D'Anthony Melton, Al Horford, and even Seth Curry were all mentioned as part of the group that will eventually join in. Each of them brings something different, and the excitement is real to see how they'll mesh with the existing core. Having that kind of depth matters, especially when you consider the injuries that derailed last year's playoff run. What you sense most from all these conversations is that the Warriors believe last season's late surge wasn't a fluke. They truly think that if they had been healthy, if they had even a little bit more size and depth, they could have gone all the way to the conference finals, maybe even the finals. The way they battled, the way they found their rhythm at the right time, gave them confidence. And that confidence hasn't gone anywhere. In fact, it's fueling them right now. They're using that stretch as proof that they can hang with anyone when they're locked in. Before we continue, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any exclusive Dubs updates. Let's keep going. The Bay Area is buzzing with whispers that could shake the very foundation of the Golden State Warriors. According to growing speculation behind the scenes, head coach Steve Kerr may be preparing to leave the franchise after nearly a decade at the helm. Nothing has been made official, and no concrete statement has been released by the team or Kerr himself. But the murmurs are persistent enough to have fans and insiders wondering if this era of Warriors basketball is approaching its twilight. Kerr has been the architect of one of the NBA's greatest dynasties, blending the brilliance of Stephen Curry, the defensive tenacity of Draymond Green, and the shooting flair of Klay Thompson into a style of play that redefined the modern game. Yet the weight of time, the demands of leadership, and the natural cycle of professional sports seem to be converging in a way that fuels talk of his possible departure. Some claim Kerr has quietly expressed fatigue with the grind of the NBA season, while others suggest philosophical differences between him and the front office are beginning to show. It is no secret that the Warriors are in a period of transition. Curry remains the face of the franchise, but the roster around him has changed significantly, with young players stepping in and veterans moving on. Kerr, who has always spoken about the joy of basketball and the importance of harmony within the team, may find himself at a crossroads. Continue the challenge of reshaping Golden State for a new chapter, or step away before the burden outweighs the joy. Sources close to league circles insist that if Kerr does step down, he will not be short of opportunities. Several franchises would line up for the chance to bring in a coach with his resume. For championships, a reputation as a master communicator, and the ability to manage egos at the highest level. Still, the thought of Kerr leaving the Warriors carries an almost surreal weight. The coach and the team have become nearly inseparable in the public imagination, their identities woven tightly together over years of success. For now, these remain whispers, speculation growing louder with each passing day but lacking official confirmation. Whether it is the end of an era or just another round of off-season chatter, one thing is certain. The possibility of Steve Kerr leaving Golden State has become the league's most intriguing rumor, and the basketball world is waiting anxiously to see if smoke will turn into fire. Stay updated exclusively with the latest Dub Nation news. Subscribe to our channel and hit the like button to keep getting daily updates on the Warriors. Don't forget to share your thoughts and comments. Your input is essential for the Dubs community. Stay tuned for the next video.